Well, thanks for having us, Greg. I'm just going to share a little bit today how the Lord's worked in our lives and brought us overseas to do some mission work, and how that's affected our family, and we'll just see what the Lord says. We also want to share a little bit about South Korea and North Korea and some of the things that are going on over there. I grew up in a Christian home. My mom over here, Leon, and Dad, they got saved right around the time I was born, so I had the privilege of growing up in a Christian home. And in 1987, they packed everything up. They felt the call to missions and moved down to Texas and studied language and missions, and then ended up doing some missions in Mexico. So we were gone for about 5 years, and that'll come back into play later. But so I accepted Christ at a young age and was following the Lord. But by the time I got to high school, maybe I was kind of where Dave was. Just, I would go to church, and I would try to read my Bible and try to pray, but I was pretty well persuaded by my peers that living for myself was, I don't know, probably just easier, I guess. But it was at Crown College, a small Christian missionary line school down by the cities. That's where I felt God calling me to go there. I kind of felt like it was sink or swim with my faith, and I felt like if I really needed a place where I could seek the Lord if I really wanted to find Him. And so while I was there, God was really drawing me back to His heart, which was very comforting to come back to the Lord. But a verse that He gave me that I feel like has really been a life verse, and a verse that's spoken for Jackie and I throughout the years, and that's Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. And most of you probably know that, but it's trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. Acknowledge Him in all your ways, and He'll make your path straight, or He'll direct your path. And that's kind of where our story begins and ends, Jackie and I. Jackie will share a little bit more about our story, but through that experience I had as a kid down in Mexico, I really had felt God spurring me on toward some kind of mission work, and I didn't know what that meant. But I also had, through some, I would say, God-ordained experiences, ended up at Big Sandy Camp, which I believe is the other camp with a rail slide, water slide in Minnesota. I ended up working there for 3 years during college, and so I had this heart I felt God really building a heart for youth, but I also felt like I had this heart for missions, and I didn't know what to do with that. And so while I was at Crown, I met a guy who was speaking one day on the call to missions, and he told the story of how he and a couple other of his friends in college all felt called to missions. One of them ended up falling away from the Lord and never realized that call. Another one got married young, and they had kids, and they bought a house, and then they bought a car, and they suddenly found themselves trapped in the American dream. It wasn't that they didn't love the Lord anymore, but never realized the call, and he was just really encouraging the students that day. If you feel the call in your life to missions, you need to go for it, no matter what comes up. And so afterwards, I wanted to talk to him and just ask him, how do I know what the Lord's really calling me to? I have these different desires I feel God's put in my heart. And anyway, he said, well, there's this little school in South Korea where you could work with youth and missions, and that was back in 2000. Actually, that was in 2001. And so I got in touch with these people in South Korea, and that next fall I went there to work at this school in South Korea. And that call to missions, you'll talk to different people who have different views. Some say the call's in the Great Commission. It's already there. You've already been given the authority. Just get out there and do the work. There's others that say you kind of need a Moses kind of experience if you're going to go overseas, because it's tough stuff over there. But either way you look at it, God has called us, and God is equipping us. And I certainly, Jackie and I, and myself personally, I did feel called. And when you feel God has put that on your heart, has put something specific in there, that can see you through some real hard times. You know, I'm guessing Paul, who had the Damascus experience, you know, some of the stuff he encountered, he probably went back to that and said, you know what? I know that Jesus who knocked me down on that road, he was real, and I'm really going to follow him. So anyway, we felt that call. Or I did the first time, and Jackie will share a little bit about our story later. So I ended up at this school in South Korea, and I had no idea what to expect. You know, this is back before the internet was very prevalent. The website they had was pretty disorganized, and I didn't really know what I was getting into until I got off the plane and got into the school. Well, here they have a boarding school, a Christian boarding school, and my job was to be a resident assistant. And so I got to live with students for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it reminded me a lot of when people would say, "What are you doing?" I said, "It's a lot like camp, but less intense, because they went to school during the day, so you got a little break." And so that's what I did for the... What's that? But it is all year long, and Jackie can share a little more about that. So I went over and I worked with the kids, and I absolutely loved it. I mean, the whole time I was there, I just felt utilized by the Lord. I felt in touch with the Lord. Good things were happening in the dorm ministry and in the school. And so I was just thrilled to be a part of it. But I ended up coming back. Mom's MS was getting pretty difficult, and so I came back just to be around family and to be with Mom some. And so I was only there for a one-year period. But through that time when I was home, I met Jackie, who's now my wife. And so I'm going to let her share a little bit about our story and how we